Well, welcome along to the 116 once again. It's a podcast about living life higher, wider, closer, and deeper. It's a presentation of First United Methodist Church in downtown Peoria. And don't forget to like us and share us on social media. Also on your favorite podcasting platform or YouTube. Subscribe or follow to get all of our updates. We would love to have you stay up to date with us on those. Or go to peoria1.com to join us for the conversation. You can leave us a message there, ask questions, whatever you would like. Peoria1.com is the place to go. My name is Greg Fish. It's a pleasure to have you along with us. And every time I come into the studio, it seems like I'm excited afresh for the guests because there are just so many things to talk about in the life of the things we think about here in downtown Peoria and beyond. But one of the things that is so important to ministry in what we do at Peoria First United Methodist Church is our Latino ministry. It has really become a part of our identity. And so I have welcomed into the studio today Pastor Adrian Garcia. Pastor, welcome along to our studios here.
Thank you, Greg.
Now, Pastor Miguel is used to being in here. This is your first visit for our, what do you think about these friendly confines?
Oh, wow, that's amazing. I mean, I love it. Yeah.
Well, here's what we want to talk about today and think about today, and that is one of the things that is, as I mentioned, so important to what we do in ministry and so important to think about in ministry is how we reach out to the entire community and be careful about becoming just enclosed into ourselves. It's so easy to do that in ministry. And one of the things we've done here in this church is to welcome in a thriving Latino community, and that's happening more and more around the country. Now, the unique thing is with our ministry, Pastor, perhaps you can speak to this a bit more, but the Latino congregation has really been considered to be a part of the main congregation, not a different work. How did that come about? Why that philosophy?
Well, since the beginning, when I was appointed to be an associate pastor for the Latino community, the idea was really to make disciples of Jesus Christ and be part of the First United Methodist Church. So even though in the beginning we just talk about that, I mean, to develop this new culture, I mean, that's another world. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, because we have very clear what is our goal. So I think the steps to make it happen is getting easier, you know.
Yeah,
so every time we welcome a Hispanic family in our worship service, for example, we invite it to keep coming, and we offer, you know, if they need translation, because some of them, they don't really need translations, but if they need translation, we offer translation. If they need Spanish Bible, we offer Spanish. I mean, we have those resources around for every family who are coming to our church.
Sure.
So in the process, we offer membership classes in Spanish or bilingual in case, I mean, they need it. And so I mean, we keep adding stuff that they can feel welcome to our church.
So let me talk to the reality of this ministry then, and it's something that you as a listener might encounter, and that is how do we interact in a healthy fashion with the different communities that are becoming a part of our ministry work, whether your ministry work where you are or if you are part of Peoria First United Methodist Church. How do we learn to interact better? How do we become more community? How do we become the people God has made us to be? Because sometimes that can be a little awkward for us. I think we have to even overcome our own stereotypes at times. So my first question to you is Pastor Adrian, when you came from Monterrey, Mexico, and when you came to the United States, what were you expecting to find? And instead, what were some of your biggest surprises?
Well, I came in 92 with Lily, my wife, and my 3 kids who were really toddlers in those days. Mm-hmm. My goal was to establish a Hispanic congregation. So I think my understanding was I don't need English. I just need to reach out my Hispanic, community. But in the process, I found myself immersed in a bilingual, bicultural community who pushed me to, I need to get this barrier of a language, cross to be able to not just to communicate with the Hispanic community, but to help the Hispanic community. So in the process, I really understand that my I would say my call is more like to be a bridge on both sides, the Anglo community to Hispanic to Anglos. Well, I would say Anglos, but I say the whole community, because depends where we are established a Hispanic ministry, is the demographic is different. So
Sure.
really the bridge idea is I think that is like stick with me. And I say in the beginning of being a pastor in Illinois,
Yeah. So when you came to Illinois for the first time, what was the culture? Was there culture shock for you? I mean, as far as weather is concerned, as far as just buying groceries, healthcare, that sort of thing. What was the most substantial culture shock? And perhaps even more so for the Latino community that you work in, what seems to be the biggest areas of shock for them when they come to this part of the country?
I would say that is in our countries, and I say country because can be from Mexico or Central America, most of the people who are coming to Central Illinois, you want to find that you really need English to survive. Mm-hmm. I mean, you are not in Texas, you are not in New York, you are not in Florida, so you need to learn English. The second one, for some of them, because they come to small communities, you need to learn how to drive, because in the big cities, most of the people, they don't buy cars because they have a transportation system. So driving, that means driver license, for example, who if in those days, because I'm talking about 92, is a lot of almost 30 years ago, there was not a lot of support in the system around the new Hispanics in our state. So trying to help them to understand the system was a shock. For me I thought was more easy to communicate with the people around me. Was not the case.
Do Latinos find this to be a welcoming area to come to, or do they just feel like I'm not sure I fit in here?
I will say that in general, the state of Illinois is very welcoming.
Good.
It's more, I don't know if I can call the sanctuary state, because I don't know if that really is important, but it's more like a place who are welcome, and their jobs, if they are jobs available, they're gonna move to Illinois. And I think the in general the structure, the infrastructure of the state, healthcare, English as a second language classes, jobs, are available for them, and they say yes. Okay, then that's why they come, and they can feel welcome to the area.
Yeah. So let me deal now with one of the issues that might be in the mind of many Anglos. I think maybe the pandemic changed the conversation, but a big part of the conversation back before the pandemic really occupied our attention was the status of workers in our country and why are they coming here? It's interesting that as Americans, we are raised up and taught that we are a melting pot. We are a culture of many cultures. And yet we went through this period of almost fearfulness of other cultures coming in and their worker status and that sort of thing. You told me something one time that really was informative to me, and that is that it is really, really hard to get your paperwork in this country, and sometimes the standard changes in process. Can you speak to that a little bit about how frustrating it is to actually become a citizen for those who come here and want to work in this country?
Well, I would say that in a simple way, the immigration system, you have two ways to get your documents right. Mm-hmm. One is if you have a job. So if you have someone to offer you a job and you can come to this country with this offer, of course you need to make those processes in your own country, get your working visa, and just travel with your family and stay here. There is a lot of them who come in that process is because they have really a degree, some kind of engineer background or health background, something like that. So, And the other side is you have a relative in the United States, someone who is so close to you. I mean, probably father, mother, son, daughter, close to you. And then you're going to process a resident, we call green card visa, if you have that kind of thing. Well, and I think in the working visa, the number of visas are very limited in general for the whole country. So there is a few people who come to that line. And the other side is the green card. So the numbers are kind of bigger, but as the numbers of applicants are immense. It's so big, especially if we are talking about countries close to us. Mexico is the number one. They try to apply because for generation, people just cross the border, establish a residence, now American citizens, second, third, fourth generation. So for Mexican who want to come, they have relatives here with the legal status, who need to apply. But the system itself is not prepared for those kind of processes of numbers. So there is another one who came from asylum. Right now, the big issue is asylum.
Okay.
Who people come to the borders to asking for asylum because the violence or the problems in the countries, etc. So there is a specific numbers of asylum visas who they can apply. So even though they are there, well, we don't have enough visas for you anyway. So it's very complicated. So when we start a process, like my wife and I, Lily is American citizen, I'm a Mexican citizen, we live in Mexico, and basically we decided to come to Illinois because God called us to do ministry. So we start our process. Because she's an American citizen, we took in those days, say 30 years ago, maybe 6 to 8 months to go through the embassy in Mexico, American embassy, and get my residency and crossing the border. So it took a year, and it was very expensive for us, even though because we need to pay in dollars, all these visas, etc., etc. Now, if you don't have a husband or parent who are asking you, there is different levels of visas. And that is when the people stuck. Because if I took a year with American citizen, could you imagine someone who has a son-in-law or a daughter who is married, who is the fourth level of priority? They're going to take 15 years, 20 years, 25 years waiting for that appointment. They can approve the process, say, oh, yeah, I got your paper, just wait for your interview, and that is going to take years of waiting. So thousands and thousands and thousands, I say millions of people waiting for that appointment. So in some ways they are not legal, but in some way they are already in the process, and that's what everything is stuck. And with the pandemic is getting worse because there is not a lot of people working in those offices.
There's so much more we can say about that, and I don't want to dwell too long on that, except I'm just kind of curious, what would you say is the primary reason why people from your country or from Latin America immigrate to the United States? What is it, because of opportunity?
I say yes, can be opportunity. People talk about opportunities for a better life, but I say more as your family.
Okay.
Your family is here, you want to be with your family. And in the sense of family visas, So, for example, my father, who born in Texas, moved to Mexico when he was a child, and then moved back in, I say, the 60s or something like that. So I grew up with Mexico with my father, who was American citizen, and me and my brothers and sisters in Mexico. And in the end, everything started moving so slowly, but we ended on this side of the river, in the United States, because my father was here, born here. So many of the others families who moved, maybe a generation ago, they want to be together.
Sure.
So in the end, it's more like a family ties. For those who come for the working visa, is different. They really need a job because that pay better. For those who doesn't have any relatives and of any working visas, so they are looking for a better life. So most of them came because the violence in our countries.
Wow.
And even though they don't have a high-payer jobs in our countries, they can live peacefully and I think happily because, I mean, we love our countries. Yes. But for those people who are moving to the borders, it's because their life is so harder. There is no way they can survive over there.
Yeah. So do you find among the Latinos you talk to that there's a general sense of happiness about being here in this country, or is it more of a sense of just looking for some sort of refuge or opportunity?
I would say there is a happiness because I can see that when they have a congregation, for example. For example, they come Sundays and you can see a family. You can see an extension of your family right here. So we spend a lot of time together. I mean, we have an hour and a half of worship service, for example, not necessarily an hour or 45 minutes. We need more time. But in the end, is after that, we keep spending time together. Then we have a birthday celebration, and there is another birthday here. The weekends, we saw at least 4 or 5 times those families during the week, besides the worship service. So that gathering make us feel safe, but at the same time happy and valuable, you know. This is the tendency of most of the families, especially I will say in Central Illinois, if we talk about Peoria, and kind of the big cities with a lot of Hispanics, but you need to divide those in some ways. You need to divide those groups of Hispanics in first generation, second generation, third generation, because culturally are different.
Now, you, as a pastor, you actually came from the United Methodist Church in Mexico, and I think maybe there's this perception among many of us Anglos that Latin America is pretty much a Catholicized country. Do most of the people who you minister to, do they come from Catholic backgrounds, and is that a challenge to you in ministering?
Well, first of all, in Mexico, there is not a United Methodist Church who has a denomination name.
Okay.
There is the Methodist Church of Mexico.
Gotcha.
You know, many years ago, they just separate for obvious reasons. There is different rules in different countries, and
Sure.
they cannot keep, in that sense, together. But anyway, as a Methodist, yes, and most of the people in our countries are, I say 80% of them, Catholic background. But even though there is a Catholic background in most of them, I say maybe 50% of them, they don't attend to church. They are nominal Catholic people in some ways. So when they hear the gospel, sometimes for them it's kind of, oh, wow, I never hear that. Yeah, because you never read the Bible. Oh, yeah, never. Okay, this is the Bible. This is exactly what you're supposed to know. Now let me tell you how to read the Bible. So they found Jesus as a Lord and Savior for the first time, and they in love with the Word. That's why they just become, we call Christians, even though they came from that background, but really they don't have any relationship with Christ. They can go to the Mass once in a while for a birthday, whatever. Like many other denominations, they have a lot of people in the numbers, but they don't attend regularly to church worship service.
And you know, we Anglos in our church services can tend to be so stoic and proper and quiet. I've noticed such an energy in the Latino congregation. Is that a cultural energy? Is it just an excitement because they're discovering themselves in Christ? What would you attribute that those differences to?
I think it's in some ways it's very cultural.
Okay.
We are very passionate, people. We love to be together. We are more, I say, lousy people, but when I found another ones who are more loud, I said, well, man, we are not really loud. But I say that in general. So we love the conversation, sitting, spend time as a family, singing, we love that kind of interaction.
Gotcha.
And so it's part of our energy as a community. That's when we come to Christ and we came to the worship service, you can see that difference. When we worship, we raise our hands, we cry, we come to the altar. Every time I make a altar call, always there is someone there. It's like they come because they want that blessing. They want that, There's some miracle happening every Sunday.
So maybe one of the best ways to break down walls is let's talk overcoming some stereotypes. What would you say is the stereotype that Anglos have about Latinos that is most frustrating for you personally?
That is a hard question. I will say that one of the myths is all the Hispanics ate hot peppers. So it's not true, and the Central American in general, they don't eat spicy food, it's more like a Mexican side. But even when Mexico is so big, it's so, from one coast to another coast, one north to south, there's thousands of miles. So, no, it's not true, but they trying to think in that way. And the other side, we thought the Anglo community or the other community, they don't eat hot, spicy food. But it's not true in general. Most of them say, wow, it's not. But, I noticed that in our congregation, some people who have their own garden, family gardens, when they harvest hot peppers, jalapenos, habaneros, or ghost peppers, they say, oh, I know someone who can eat it. And he bring it to me and say, hey, Pastor, I bring it to you. So, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
But habanero is not my thing. It's so hot. Yeah. But anyway, I appreciate it, and I just give it to someone else. But in that way, it's a funny thing, But the thing that is frustrating me more is when they feel or they think we cannot communicate with them because my pronunciation is so heavily that they think maybe they don't understand. But this is one thing is my mind, and the other thing is my tongue, my way to speak, So when we are together and they trying to speak with me and they take slowly to see if I can, and they say, I understand, but let me try to say it the way you can understand. So I think they frustrate me the way that they even for Hispanic community trying to communicate with Anglos is the same. You can communicate. Maybe it's not we don't have the whole vocabulary or the way the sounds, my word sounds differently because the pronunciation, and depends where you came from. But in the end, if we can communicate, this is the goal. Say hi to everyone. Say hello, how are you? What is your name? Basic stuff. Everybody can do it, especially with the Hispanic community in our country who, in first generation, Central Illinois, they come here because they love here, they love the weather, they love the cities, and they have jobs. So if they have jobs, they speak English somehow, So be friendly, don't be shy, talk to them. If you see in the process that you understand, while keep asking or say, well, it's no big deal. We keep trying because we as a Hispanic trying to understand everything in the other side. I say, you keep trying to ask and make that bridge of friendship, stronger. That's why one of the things that I really love about this church is the friendliness that we have as a church to the community, and we take it for granted. Yeah. But not many churches has that kind of opening to any other culture.
And one of the things you've noticed about me and our relationship is I know just enough Spanish to get myself in trouble. I'm kind of ashamed of the fact that I studied Spanish in school because I was required to, and actually became very moderately fluent, but I've lost most of that because I haven't used it. And so I like to occasionally try, at least attempt to speak in Spanish. Do Latinos like it when Anglos try to speak in Spanish, or do they by and large prefer that we try to communicate in English?
I will say that we love when you try, because we are doing the same thing. You know, it's kind of, he's walking the second mile just to communicate with me. That we love that.
And I don't know if this is a stereotype, a good one or bad one, but I've been of the perception that Latinos learn English much easier than we Anglos learn Spanish. I've just been so impressed with, even in vacationing in Mexico, how many people are reasonably fluent in English as compared to here, how people are not that conversant in Spanish. Do you think there's any truth to that?
Well, when you go to Mexico, to those places, basically they are there because they want your money. That's all. They training them to, I need bilingual people serving tables, blah, blah, blah. And that's why people just push themselves to be bilingual in those areas of the country, especially in the Cancun area, Acapulco, all this coast, because this is an industry who is bringing so much money to our country. That's why even the pandemic, Cancun was not even close. It's always receiving people, and they say with the protocols, but kind of, yeah, really. Anyway, so this is one way. The other one is, I think, yes, we are trying harder to understand and speak English because we are in this country. So if I move to Mexico, I forgot about I don't need it. But I'm here. I need to make it happen because I have responsibilities. I have bills to pay. I have children to, help, and all this stuff is just pushing us to do that. When people they don't want to really try to speak English, they move to Texas, Houston, Florida, California. Say, I don't need that English. So, for the people who stay here, and I say, for how long you are here? 10 years, man, you make it. I mean, you really care about this place. So that's one way. Okay,
so here's the question I want to ask you as a bilingual speaker, as somebody who is very fluent. Do you think in English yet? Do you find yourself thinking in English?
Yeah.
That's a weird question.
No, it's not weird. In the beginning, when you start getting the language, you think in both languages. I mean, you translate those words. Okay, that's what you're talking about. I think there is a point in your learning process when you say, I don't need to translate anything. That's so. When you talk to me, I don't translate anything now. I just get it. Whatever I understood, I try to explain myself. If it's something that I don't understand, and then I need asking, but it's not because I'm translating. Not for me anymore. But for the first generation, I say, in our congregation, we have around 100 people, including children, in our congregation for the Hispanic community, said when they come directly from their countries, and this is the first generation who came 3 months ago, of course they are translating. They translate everything. They go to the grocery store and they take a banana and say, oh my God, it's very expensive because they translated in pesos.
Oh, yeah.
And it's, no, I don't want to buy this one. Oh, it's nice. Oh, no, it's too expensive. We always translate money and words. But if we say, when we ask her, for how long you are being in Peoria, and they say 3 years, probably those people, they not translated anymore. Probably they don't have a lot of vocabulary because the English is for me is complicated, and I'm gonna try to explain why. If you work in the construction business, you know your language, your lingo, to hammer, saw, things like that, very specific. If you work in the cleaning services, you know you're specific. But the conversation and a different topics or general topic of the weather or stuff like that, you need to go outside of your comfort zone and trying to learn the new language. It's not the same to translate for a lawyer to a doctor to constructor people, and we need to get those vocabularies. I say, for me, if I preach in English, the religious vocabulary is in me because this is my thing. But if they put me to speak about the global warming, I lost. I mean, because I can translate all the words that I know in Spanish to the new language.
Yeah. Okay, so you said something that I want to kind of go back to, and that is thinking about food is central to every culture. Every culture very proud of their food traditions, and then even among Anglos, we all have different food traditions in different parts of the country. Something I've always been. By the way, your wife is a fantastic cook. I always love it when you guys bring in food, and it doesn't happen that often. But tell your wife to bring food in anytime she wants to. I'm here. But just out of curiosity. Reasonable side of me realizes that any restaurant in this country Americanizes the food. But to what degree are we experiencing anything authentic when we go out to a Mexican restaurant being operated by Mexican individuals? What in those restaurants tends to be authentic? What is not so much? What are the American versions of Mexican food?
Well, I would say it in this way. When you go to the restaurant and you see more Hispanics than Anglos, that is the real thing.
Good.
So it's easy. You see more Anglos than Hispanics sitting in the restaurants. Probably it's not the real thing.
Gotcha.
That's why even in Peoria we have restaurants and we have this new small business selling tacos and your very specific thing. When you saw people making line or buying in these different places and you saw more Hispanics, that is the real thing. In Peoria, we don't have a lot of them. We have few of them. They say, I prefer this food from this restaurant, but not from this restaurant, because most of the restaurants in general are making for the general community, not for the Hispanic community. If I go to any of them, for example, I would say Los Cabos is an advertisement, but I know the owner and I say, hey, do you have this? He said, no, but I can make it for you. Oh, because they don't sell it to general because it's not a profit in there. But I want this plate. Oh, yeah, let me talk to the cook. And the cook is from Michoacan or from Guanajuato, and they know how to do it. And they have the ingredients. I said, this is for Pastor Adrian. You see?
Yeah.
But it's like that. You need to know your plates, your dishes. So you go to the big cities, you're going to find the real stuff. And they're going to be more, I say, not necessarily all Hispanics, but Hispanics and Anglos. But you can see that it's different, a very different thing. In Chicago, for example, because it's close to us, you find it. For the Central American people, because there is a very diversity food, the Central American people, they like the Mexican food in general, but they have their own dishes. So when they want to go to a very Central American place, it's not here in Peoria.
Gotcha.
So when they find friends in the area who are from that country, say, hey, come on to my house because we have this dish. Oh, and then they meet together in their homes, not in restaurants. But they go to San Luis or to Chicago, and they have those kind of restaurants. They just travel every weekend for a good and nice and real food.
Pastor, do you have a few more minutes? Because this is such a great conversation. I'm going to go a little bit longer with this podcast than usual because there are several things. Here's another question that I have for you, and it's an observation that I first made many years ago when I was still in the broadcasting industry. I lived in a community where there was a large influx of workers from Mexico coming in to the community. And one of the things that I noticed was when I was in one of the big department stores, one of the big box stores, you could always tell when there were new folks coming in because you could see the look on their face. They were just blown away by what they saw in this store available to them. Is that a fair analysis that by and large, when folks from Central America come here, that there's a lot more available to them as far as shopping and in our stores than they might experience where they live?
I would say that probably not the brands, because we have the same brands in our country.
Okay.
It's probably the cost are costly in our countries than here.
Okay.
If I'm gonna buy Nike shoes, I mean, in our countries, I can pay $150, $200 for the same shoes that I'm gonna buy here, and $100. So I said, wow, the brands are kind of everywhere, but it's very expensive. Even in Central America, it's one of the poverty levels in Central America are, terrible. And they are very expensive. And there is malls, because they still use those malls that we have here, but it's not the business they used to be. But they have malls that you can go there and say, wow, that you can be amazed of the kind of constructions they have. But they're very expensive. So who buy those places? Well, there is very small numbers of rich people in those countries who make it for themselves. Instead of going to New York, they just go to their own malls. So when they come here, they are not amazed of the buildings, but the brands and cost they kind of compare and say, wow. And we have more online buyers here. So the new generation of the Hispanics who came already with the cell phone in hand, when they found it, it's easy to buy in online than their countries, because they don't have this infrastructure in their own countries as larger as here. You can go here and you can go crazy. So I think I say to them, you be careful. Don't spend all your money and stuff like that, because they don't have over there, of course. And not all of them, they came from poor families,
And, even in asking that question, I wonder, does that reveal a little bit of an unfair stereotype that I have? And that is that anybody who comes from Central America is automatically coming from a more impoverished existence than what happens here in America. That's probably an unfair stereotype, isn't it?
Yeah, because one of the things that I found in Mexico and Central America, there is a lot of young people studying in the universities, with the degrees. The problem with that is because they're living there when they graduate from there, as a lawyers or dentists, doctors, you name it. There is a lot of those stuff here. Yeah. They don't have, Central America, they don't have enough jobs for everyone.
Sure.
Or the pay is too low. For example, we went to Honduras 2 years ago, and we asked the team in Honduras to hire doctors, pediatrician, and a specialist to be with us, to be in those 3-4 days clinic. We pay 100. Let me think. Right. So close to $180 a day. To serve that community, and they have, maybe 50, 60 people.
Wow.
For $180, they say, yeah, sure, because I'm not gonna make it in my own setting, but I'm making here. So in 3 days, they can get $750, and maybe the value of 2 weeks of job over there, or maybe a month over there. So that's why when you come to see the people, one of the things that I very, curious about is if they have a degree. Because when I found they have a degree, they know more than I thought. So I have people who were teachers, who were dentists, who were lawyers in our congregation has not certification to be lawyers here or dentists here. Sure. But they have a lot of education, and they are working in restaurants and cleaning supplies, or, if they really push to make it happen, they're going to get to the top of wherever they are working, because they are good in management.
Now, before you went into the ministry, you were an engineer.
I was an engineer, civil engineer.
Have you experienced people assuming that because you came from Mexico that you weren't as maybe as smart as they were? Or, I mean, is there that stereotype that's present, or does that just happen on a limited basis?
I would say yes, because when I said, I work as a civil engineer. I graduated and work, and they can amaze. Oh yeah, I say, yeah. But my goal really is because God called me to do ministry. I left that area to be in ministry, but helped me a lot in the process of doing ministry and several ministries that I have. So I think it's the same for a lot of them. When I found that I went to make a Bible study. We have a Bible study every Wednesday, and there is 15 to 20 adults who came every Wednesday. Right now, in the middle of pandemic, I need to test the waters to see how fast I can go, how deep I can go, and depends who are there. So probably in my Bible study Wednesday, we have people who struggle with the idea of reading, but the other one who are engineers and Caterpillar right now. So I need to be wise to make it happen to everyone and engage everyone. Yeah. So because we have those kind of levels sitting there in front of me.
Well, let me wrap this up like this, and I'm here with Pastor Adrian Garcia. This has been just a fascinating conversation for me. In your years of experience now of having ministered here in this country, what things do you think need to happen to strengthen the bond between the Latino and Anglo congregations? How can we do better at becoming the body of Christ together rather than two churches that exist in one place?
I say trust.
Okay.
I think the bottom line is trust. I mean, trust that we are trying to do the best we can with the things we have. So when you find a family in our church, for the people who are part of our congregation, trust them that they are trying to do the best. So make a conversation in some ways, even with translation, but just make a conversation. I think if you're trying to know them better, you want to understand more what is the background and how difficult it is for some, and I say new immigrants, because this is why we have new immigrants, and value them when they trying to speak English. You know, for me, I never get an ESL classes. I never go to a university for getting English. I just learn as fast as I can. That's why I have kind of broken words over there. Anyway, but I fascinated with some of the people. Few, I say, maybe in our congregation, 20% came from Indian background from their own countries.
Really?
So they speak another dialect, and then they learn Spanish. Now they speak English, and that amazed me. Say, my gosh, you are smarter than anybody I can know, because they can speak that. I have a lady who speak Quiche in Guatemala, learn Spanish, then learn Portuguese because he works in an embassy in Brazil, and then moved to Chicago. Now is member of our church. So you see, you are so smart and loyal and have this resilience in you who overcome any barriers. So I can see a brighter future, not just economically, but in your family for the second and third generation. You're going to see that difference in your life and the life of your family, because you are valuable. And now you got Jesus Christ, you know, you can do whatever you want.
Pastor, would you do us a favor, and in closing, would you mind offering a prayer that God will bless our work together, and for those who might be listening outside of the Peoria, just a blessing on their coming together with other cultures as well? Would you say a prayer for us in closing?
Yes. Oh, dear God, thank you for the opportunity, Lord. Yes, to be in this multicultural setting. So we don't understand everything, and we don't even pretend to understand everything. But give us your grace, your love, so deeply in our heart, that we can see as, one another as a valuable body of Christ, as a son and daughter of Christ, and that we can see this body, the one body, become the church that you are planning to be, not just right here in Peoria, but in the rest of the world. Because there is a world who needs this unity. And the only way I can perceive that unity is abiding by you, Lord. No matter what the languages or the culture we have, or even the legal status we have right now, because I can see that all of us, we are in this new transition, in this new world that you love so much, and you die for us. So thank you for this opportunity to live this life in this time of this moment of the history. In Jesus Christ, I pray. Amen.
Amen. And I'm just going to put this out there that if somebody from outside of our area is watching and would like to have some more information on how to build this sort of ministry, I would guess if they want to contact us through peoria1.com, yes. You would be willing to continue a conversation with them, perhaps? Okay.
More than welcome to.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being my guest today. We're going to have to continue this conversation because I see so many things we can build on here, and this has been an exciting one. So thank you again, Pastor Adrian Garcia, pastor of Hispanic Ministries. Is that the correct term?
Hispanic, Latino.
At First United Methodist Church in downtown Peoria. Thanks again, Pastor, for being here. And want to, again, invite you to be in contact with us through peoria1.com. That's peoria1.com. If you check in there, you can send us comments, you can send us questions, and you can continue the conversation with us. Also, be sure and like and share us on social media. That's one of the ways we get this word out. And subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform or YouTube, or follow whichever the vernacular happens to be where you are. That keeps you updated as far as our podcasts are concerned and helps us get the word out as well. Well, the 116 is a podcast that is a presentation of First United Methodist Church in downtown Peoria, to bring life higher, wider, closer, and deeper. My name is Greg Fish, and it's been such a privilege to be with you today. Thank you so much for being a part of this conversation on the 116.